Hey guys, welcome back to Sarcastic Remarks alongside Chris, my brother. My name is Ryan Chambers. We are the official Dallas Stars podcast of THPN. Thank you to our sponsor, as always, DraftKings Sportsbook, and newly added sponsors to the THPN family, Manscaped and Better Health. Better Help. I'm so sorry. Anyways, if you heard the last episode, you heard the fantastic job that Chris did on the Manscaped ad. It was quite hilarious. As soon as I saw that they were going to become a sponsor, I was just like, I have to get Chris to say this ad. It's just perfect for him. It fits in. But anyways,
I kind of figured I'd be doing something like that when I heard we got them. So,
anyways, how are things going, Chris, in the personal life? I know that you went to a certain place.
Yeah, I went to New York. That was fun. Pretty cool. Highly recommend. My sports life has been terrible. Don't recommend that.
Should we even mention it, Chris?
No, not yet.
Too fresh.
Too fresh. Next week.
If you don't know what we're talking about, then you don't deserve to know.
Yeah, you don't get to know. You'll get to find out next week.
Go figure it out. Anyways, for me, I'm sorry that I have been incognito for the last 12 days. I know I said we would try to be a little bit more consistent with this, but life has been crazy for me. Let's just say that we had a offer put in on our house, and we're now under contract here in Crane, and we actually officially moved back to the Dallas area on Saturday. And then Sunday, we finished driving back to the Dallas area. We kind of did a little bit of driving there. And then I had to drive the truck back today. So it was a 26-foot box truck from Enterprise. Oh, my goodness. Those things are scary to drive. And no, you don't need a special license, like Chris thought, to drive one of those things. But nonetheless, I'm excited, and we're here to talk about a whole bunch of things here, Chris. Obviously, the most recent thing is being that, and this was kind of, we'll get to some Stanley Cup final stuff here in a little bit, but first thing I wanted to talk about here today was the craziness that's out of Arizona. They don't have a team, and yet they're still making headlines. Apparently, Alex Mararello has told members of his staff, the ones that are remaining at least, that he's done as the Coyotes owner. He's done trying to go after areas in Phoenix and in the in that area, and trying to find an arena that will be of NHL caliber. Chris, when you heard about that, what were your thoughts? Because this just seemed inevitable for me, at least.
I mean, I was pretty shocked by the decision from the local authorities where the land was going to be sold at. I mean, I don't know how you go from a potential multi-billion-dollar economic boom in your area to actually we're not going to do anything with it. I mean, that's kind of shocking in my opinion. But the fact that Morello didn't even have a pulse on that being a possibility kind of proves how incompetent he was at trying to manage this team and trying to get this team a new arena. So I agree it was about time. I didn't think it would happen that fast, though. I thought we'd see a couple of years from now, Morello didn't get X, Y, or Z figured out. But no, it was immediate. He immediately got shut down. So that the speed was shocking. Maybe not the end result, but yeah, it's much more up in the air now than it was just a month ago.
So this was really interesting because I was just curious how, Coyotes fans felt about this. And I feel bad for them because this means it's less likely that the Phoenix Coyotes are going to return anytime soon, maybe as an expansion franchise even further down the road. But there were a lot of Coyotes fans that were actually like, good riddance, get out of here, Alex Mararello, we don't like you. And that was kind of the exact same feeling that I had after, he sold the team to Ryan Smith and the Utah Hockey Club.
Yeah, I feel like that's a little bit of copium. I mean, that was their best option of trying to get a team back was Morello getting it. He had a promise from the league that he would get an expansion franchise at a extremely discounted price. I mean, there wasn't. I mean, that's a huge deal right there, and he still can't get it done. It's going to be hard to say Arizona is the place where a hockey team needs to go when you've got places like Houston and you've got places like Quebec City where it would be a lot easier to cement a sports team there. So it doesn't look good, in my opinion, for Arizona.
Now, I've done a lot of research on this particular topic because it was just really interesting to me to figure out like why all this went down and how it happened. So I'll spare you the details of most of it. But what I will say about all of this is Alex Mariuelo was a guy known in business for taking assets that were distressed, so assets and companies that were losing money, and finding a way to make them successful. Just finding some way to make them successful. So that seemed to make sense for him buying the Coyotes, right? Because the Coyotes had all these issues trying to find good, stable ownership, trying to find a home. But I think what Alex Mariuelo kind of was short-sighted about, in a lot of other podcasts and a lot of other commentators have said this, is that he tried to run the sports organization like one of his other organizations. You can't do that when sports organizations are so public. And what that means is it's so out in the open. Everyone knows your business because it's sports. Sports are very popular in the United States. If you have to do right by players, and that's kind of the expectation, and there's a lot of loyalty that, that fan bases expect from their teams. And that's something that Alex Mariuelo never really did. He didn't show any kind of effort to try and connect with the Phoenix metro area, with the business community, with the fans there. And he just kind of seemed to alienate himself from almost everything, because he tried to run it like one of his businesses. And it was just hard, staunch nose, and like, you will do this, you will do this. And he tried to run it like that. I don't know what you think about all of that, but it was just something that I thought was interesting because I saw numerous people talking about it in that way.
Honestly, for me, it's more his inability to foresee the problems that were coming on the horizon that all hockey fans could see. I mean, the issue with his arena, everyone knew there was issues with Arizona and their arena for a long period of time before they got kicked out, and there was no backup plan. There was no second option. It was, we got kicked out. Oh no, let's find the closest arena that we could play hockey in. And it turned out to be in Arizona State with a couple thousand people in the stands. There was he just couldn't see the future at all. There was no gut feelings that he had. He had no pulse, like you said, on Arizona or the business community. He also didn't have a pulse on the local governments there, and he didn't have a pulse on hockey. I mean, it seems like he has no idea what's going on in the hockey culture either. So he did a terrible job.
So obviously the ones that are hardcore will understand how this came about and what led to this decision. But we need to talk about the thing that ultimately closed the door on his decision to kind of back away from building an arena in the Phoenix metro area. And that was literally in 2 days. There was supposed to be a land auction in, I think it was Northeast Phoenix area, somewhere around there. It's a very big, populated area. And there was about 100+ acres, something like that he had identified as the Coyotes' next home. And he had all these plans to build an arena, a youth center as well, like a youth arena as well. And then all of these different shops and, just kind of real estate development in that area off of those 110 acres. And for reasons that the ASLD, the Arizona State Land Development Office, said, they just completely canceled the auction for this land in less than a week before it was supposed to happen. I think it actually came out on Friday is when it came out that they canceled that auction. So, and there's a whole statement. I'm not going to read it because it's boring, but long story short, there were some things that he Alex Mariuello and his team and the Arizona Coyotes did not do. They did not do their due diligence in some of the stuff. They didn't have a zoning attorney, which apparently that's like a no-brainer you have to have when you're trying to buy land and develop land and stuff like that. So that seemed to be the nail in the coffin for any chance of Alex Mariuello, bringing the team back with him as the owner.
Yeah, I mean, it was dumb. I think he did an awful job.
That's ultimately what led to the downfall of the Phoenix Coyotes. Does this now mean that they are now at the same tier as those other cities, like you mentioned, Chris, like Houston, like Quebec City, like Atlanta? Are they on that same playing field, or do you still think that they're a little bit higher on that tier list and getting an NHL team anytime soon?
If I was an owner buying a team, I wouldn't put it in Arizona. I mean, especially when Houston is an option is the number one, because they haven't had a team. They're the number 4 largest metropolitan area in the United States. It's this team that loves sports and loves hating Dallas. I mean, why would you not put a team there to compete against it? That seems like a no-brainer to me. Even Atlanta would be better, but I mean, they've had multiple failed teams, so you can see why they wouldn't want to go there again. But yeah, I would put Phoenix at the bottom of my list for potential places to put a new expansion franchise, honestly. The only thing that you have there is you have the solid core of diehard Coyotes fans that you could lean on to start. But I think it's way too hard to try and deal with that local government, obviously, and then to try and get more fans to come in other than the diehards that they do have.
Right. If you ask me, I think the next 2 cities to get expansion franchises are Houston and Atlanta. I know that seems crazy because Atlanta has already had 2 and they've both failed miserably. But they're I don't know. It just seems something about it. They really want to stay there. They really want to be there. And I just think they're a little salty on Arizona right now. I think eventually it will go back. If we get to 36 teams, Arizona will definitely be back in the mix of that. But that's just my prediction and what I think.
Yeah, I don't know. I agree with you, Atlanta over Phoenix, but yeah, that's tough.
Ultimately, I feel really bad for Arizona hockey fans. It just really sucks.
Because, like I said, there is that set of diehard Coyotes fans there, and they just don't have a team anymore. That just is awful.
Okay, so moving on from there, what I want to get into next is we just got a couple of trades we need to talk about. There's lots more that we'll discuss in the later half, including a couple of trades that involve the Dallas Stars. But what I want to get into first, Chris, is obviously the latest one. Linus Ullmark is now a member of the Ottawa Senators. And going back the other way as a first-round pick, Jonas Korpisalo, 25% retained, and Mark Kastelik, who is very much a Boston Bruin. He's big, he's mean, he's nasty, he's perfect. He's not going to be a top 6 forward for them, but he's definitely a guy that would fit well in the bottom 6. Obviously, Boston gets a first-round pick. That's not bad considering they had to get rid of Linus Ullmark anyways because of his cap hit, and they have to re-sign Jeremy Swayman. And then, honestly, Jonas Korpisalo, he just signed with the Ottawa Senators just last offseason, but it was bad enough that Ottawa was willing to get rid of him just like that. So that doesn't surprise me. He's only going to cost $3 million on the cap for the Boston Bruins. He'll be a good backup for Jeremy Swayman. But what are your thoughts overall on this particular trade?
Yeah, I thought it was a great deal by Boston, being able to get a first and already solve your backup goaltender problem. And then you add that just extra little sprinkle piece on top, like you mentioned. That's a huge play by Boston. And honestly, it's not bad from Ottawa. I think they overspent a little bit, but they needed a goalie. Korpisalo was not good in Ottawa. Ottawa has so much potential. Everyone keeps saying every year, "Oh, this is the year. They're gonna be good this year. They're gonna be fighting for a playoff spot," and it just hasn't happened. So I think making a move like that is good to try and spark that and get that going for them. So not bad for Ottawa, but huge haul for Boston. I think that's a great move for them.
Ottawa just completely confuses me because when you look at their team, they should not be as bad as they are.
Yeah, it's exactly like the Canucks last year.
It makes no sense. It makes zero sense. Even with their goaltending, I understand their goaltending is nowhere near where it should be for a playoff caliber team, but they've got all of these good players, man. I mean, you've got Claude Giroux, you've got Tim Stützle, you've got the defense they have is pretty fantastic, I think. So maybe this puts them over the edge and maybe at least gets them as a bubble playoff team, maybe.
Yeah, someone's got to spark them to where they can actually start playing up to their potential. I mean, we saw with the Canucks, it can be nothing. It can literally just be just playing better. So I don't know. Their goaltending was definitely a problem. They've solved it. The only issue is he's not re-signed yet. He's got 1 year on his deal, and he's 30 years old. So it's not a long-term solution. He's not your franchise goalie, but they've got a number one for now.
Well, goalies can play for forever, honestly. I mean, like we just saw Sergei Bobrovsky win the Stanley Cup at 35, and he was excellent.
Right. So, we saw Ben Bishop just break all of a sudden. And, I mean, that just seems to happen sometimes with goalies. Goalies are like catchers. Their knees can just give out, and once they do, you're either playing first base or you're not playing.
Another trade that was really big, not as big as the Allmark deal, is Jacob Markstrom. Jacob Markstrom goes from Calgary. He's traded to the New Jersey Devils. So does this put the Devils back into the playoffs? First off, I think they were going to be in the playoffs even without Markstrom. But does this make them like a real, true contender in the Eastern Conference?
I wouldn't say contender. It really depends on how Markstrom plays, because we've seen him play fantastic, and then last year he was pretty pedestrian, I feel like. So it really depends what kind of Markstrom the Devils get. If they get awesome Flames level when he was fantastic against the Stars, Markstrom, I mean, this team could be really good, and it could be at least close to a contender, but it's a big question mark.
Are they back in the playoffs?
I agree with you. I think they would have been back in the playoffs even without him.
That's a slam dunk for me, I think.
Yeah. You'd have to fail pretty bad 2 years in a row to not get back in the playoffs.
And all they had to give up, New Jersey did, was a mid-level prospect who sort of kind of is okay. He's more like a defenseman role in Kevin Ball, and a first-round pick. And I know a first-round pick is still pretty good, but it's still not the first-round pick from this year, which is 10th overall. It's the 2025 first-round pick. So that's good. And just assuming it's going to be much lower on in the first round than this past year, because that's probably like the biggest disappointment of the season from this past year was the New Jersey Devils. They just fell off the face of the earth.
Yeah.
So
agreed.
We'll have to see if Markstrom puts him over the edge. Tom Fitzgerald seems to think so, the GM. Last trade I want to talk about, and I know there's lots of other ones we can get to, but we're trying to keep it to an hour here. The biggest one, in my opinion, PLD, Pierre-Luc Dubois, is on his third team in 4 years, signs the big extension with the LA Kings just last offseason for 8 years, over $8 million. He is now a member of the Washington Capitals, and Darcy Kemper goes the other way to the Los Angeles Kings. So just a couple of details here for you on this trade. Obviously, PLD has 7 years remaining on his deal. Now, the reason why this deal was done earlier rather than later, on July 1st, his no movement clause goes into effect. For those of you that don't know, basically what that means is he cannot be traded or sent down to the minors without his approval. So that's something that they thought about getting rid of him for, because he had such a terrible year this year. I think he had barely 20 points. I don't have his stats here in front of me, but for what he's getting paid, it was completely atrocious. And at points, he was in the bottom 6, making $8 million. So not a good sign for PLD. And then on the flip side, Darcy Kemper, he was below average. He was not, dog crap terrible or anything like that. but he definitely did not live up to his contract that he signed with the Washington Capitals. So this was basically two players who are on really terrible deals, and it was literally just a 1-for-1 trade. There was no retention from either one of the teams, and I can kind of see from both teams' perspective why this deal was done. But Chris, let me get your thoughts on this first.
Yeah, I don't know how much of an opinion I really have on it. It's two teams trading bad contracts and just hoping that that'll spark the other player to figure it out, I guess. But yeah, I don't know. I don't like the Pierre-Luc Dubois thing. I think the contract was extremely speculative considering he had 2 good seasons, and then all of a sudden they're paying him $8 million for the longest term you can. That's crazy. And yeah, I don't know about Kemper. I don't think he was ever like the elite of the elite goaltenders. He was definitely a top 10 guy for a while, but it seems like you said, his contract is just not good for how he's performing now. So it's just 2 bad contracts getting swapped, and they're hoping that fixes them. So we'll see, I guess. The most likely thing that's going to happen is they're both going to stay bad.
For Los Angeles, this makes a lot of sense. I mean, you get out. Yes, it was Rob Blake who made the deal, but he shouldn't be tooting his own horn because he was the one that signed the deal. But at least he recognized how terrible of a deal it was and immediately just got rid of it and sort of kind of plugged a hole in his team at the same time, right? So he saves a little bit of cap money here, about $2.5–3 million, roughly somewhere around there, by getting Kemper and getting rid of Pierre-Luc Dubois. He might have a starting goaltender here. I doubt it, but it's not terrible considering that you're getting rid of the Pierre-Luc Dubois deal. That's the biggest thing. That's the biggest win in this trade for the LA Kings, is that you're getting rid of Pierre-Luc Dubois. But you're also getting a guy who might be able to bounce back. And honestly, if you're getting rid of that bad contract, you'll take that risk. For the Capitals, that makes a lot of sense too. And here's why. When you look at this team right now, the guys on this team, are they on the older side or the younger side?
They're old.
Exactly. You've got Ovechkin, you got Backstrom, you got Oshie, you've got Carlson, who are all 35 and above, I believe, at this point. I mean, Pierre-Luc Dubois is 26. And yeah, he costs a lot more money than he probably should. But again, this is a risk you're willing to take because you're trying to infuse your roster with a little bit of youth. He will be one of the younger guys there. So, and again, this is another risk that Washington is willing to take. You get rid of your bad goalie and who didn't do very well, and they've got Charlie Lindgren, who I think they're going to have as their starter. And then you also get a guy who might be able to get some more points up. And yeah, he costs more, but he's young. So again, this is just a risk for risk trade, in my opinion, and that's kind of how I look at it.
Yeah, I agree. It's a good point. Yeah, I think the Luc Dubois thing is, man, that's tough for a team that's going to start rebuilding. You might just have yourself stuck with a contract like that for 7 years. Could be potentially bad. And then the Kings are in a spot where they're close to good. Like, they're right there. And if this contract could saddle them in a time where they're just finally getting good. So they're kind of in different spots, but both contracts could sink them in different ways, I feel like.
All right, we got to move on because we're already getting late here. Already at 26 minutes, and we're not even halfway through our little outline that we have. Last thing that I want to talk about with the NHL, and then we'll get into some star stuff, and we'll spend the bulk of the time remaining on that, is obviously that the Florida Panthers are the Stanley Cup champions for the first time in their history. They're in their 30th season. They win their first Stanley Cup. Lots of cool things and cool storylines to be talked about with all of this, and seeing all the stuff on social media of some of the crazy things that have been going on. It's been a lot of fun to watch. But first off, Chris, how much of the series did you get to watch? And then second off, what's one of the storylines that has kind of stood out to you among all the others?
I didn't watch a ton of it. I was too busy being sour and sad. But I did watch all of Game 7. I watched parts of games here and there. I turned them off once I thought they were pretty much over, and pretty much every time I was right. Um, but the Game 7 was awesome. It was really cool seeing a close Game 7 after a really wild series, 3-3. I mean, that's crazy. And I'm happy that Tkachuk is able to get the cup like that. I think that's a player that is someone that really pushes hockey in the direction that you want it to go. You want it to still be that physical game. Like, the direction of hockey as a sport is kind of twisting more towards the soccer side, I feel like, focusing just on skill and just on trying to make the flashiest things happen. And yes, we need some of that, and that's a lot of fun to watch. But hockey as a culture and just its culture as a sport is just grit and physicality as well. And Tkachuk has a good combination of both of those that I think is a good ambassador to the sport in that way, to push it back a little bit more towards the physical side in the way that McDavid pushes it more towards the skill side. So I think having both those guys at the top is a cool thing. And then just Florida getting one, it's always a good thing, I feel like, for Southern markets whenever a Southern team wins the cup. So we take that, and the Oilers didn't get it, so I'm happy.
So you're still very much sour on the fact that the Oilers knocked out the Stars. I'm
sour on everything. Stars, Mavs, Aggies, nothing good's happening. I'm paying for the Rangers World Series. That's what's happening right now.
That's the way you can look at it. Now we'll make this about the Stars here in a second, but it was such a fun series to watch. I watched every single game. And except for Game 7, we were trying to put stuff in a storage unit, so me and Dad only got to watch the second half of the second period and then the third period. But we were listening to it on the way back to the house. But I mean, what a fantastic series! I mean, if you're the NHL, this is exactly what you want.
Yeah, thank goodness it didn't end in 5 like we thought it was.
Right. Mm-hmm. I mean, it was fantastic. It was absolutely fantastic in both ways. There were incredible saves. There were amazing goals. McDavid was pulling rabbits out of a hat like ridiculousness, including that Corey Perry goal. Oh my goodness, that was ridiculous.
Crazy.
The save that Bobrovsky made in Game 7 that won them the cup when it was 2-1. I mean, I don't even think he meant to do it. I think he was just sprawling, hoping it would. I mean, he was completely like in disarray at that point. It was just total chaos around him. And it was so much fun to watch. And hockey is really so much more fun when you're not emotionally invested in it.
I disagree. No. It's more, I wouldn't say it's more fun. What would I say? It's more relaxing. It can be relaxing.
Okay, I like that better. Yes. It's more relaxing. Yes. And it is fun to watch other fan bases get worked up about things. So that is also entertaining too. So there was a lot of stuff from Stars fans kind of clobbering over the Oilers fan base after Game 7, which I was perfectly okay with. So, but honestly, for me, what was the most interesting thing and what I love to see, and I don't know why, because I didn't really care that much until this series. But it was Paul Maurice. So Paul Maurice, the head coach of the Florida Panthers, the guy's been around for 26 years. I mean, he's been around almost as long as the Stars and the Florida Panthers have been around. He coached the Hartford Whalers when they were still around. That's the crazy thing about all of this as well. And, you know, he wasn't even going to coach again before he accepted the job in Florida. That was something that they talked about. And Bill Zito, the GM, you know, kept trying to call him and he wouldn't answer his phone because he didn't recognize the number. Paul Maurice didn't. And, you know, 2 years as the Florida head coach, and he's got himself his first Stanley Cup. That it was just such a cool feeling, especially when Emily Kaplan was doing the after game interview. She was about to interview him, and then Spencer Knight, the third goalie in the organization, tapped him and said, "Hey, coach, it's your turn. Take the cup." And he raised it, and it gave me chills watching it because it reminded me a lot of 2001 when Ray Bork raised the cup, and he had spent 22 seasons chasing that trophy, and he finally gets it in his last season. So it was just really cool to see, and I absolutely loved every bit of that. One thing I did want to ask you about, because I think it'd be interesting to get your thoughts on it. What did you think about Connor McDavid not coming out to accept the Conn Smythe Trophy?
I honestly don't care about that, honestly. Some people trying to make a big deal about it, but, I mean, dude just lost the Stanley Cup. I wouldn't go out and accept the trophy either. Mail it to me. I don't care. So, I don't think that was that big of a deal. Him getting the trophy was interesting, mostly because of what happened in Game 6 and 7. I mean, you just felt in Game 7. All right, McDavid's going to do something. We're waiting on McDavid. McDavid's going to do something. He's going to do something in this game before it ends, and it never happened. And then he gets the trophy. It felt pretty weird. You look at the stats. Sure, it totally makes sense. He definitely stat wise was the best player in the playoffs. Maybe. I mean, when you look at how few goals he had, that's kind of an interesting thing too. But yeah. It was weird optics after the Game 6 and 7 where he was pointless.
One of the things that I've heard a couple of other people talk about is what player on the Florida Panthers overshadowed Connor McDavid. And in fairness, there wasn't really one that I could think of. I mean, up until Game 3, obviously it was Sergei Bobrovsky. If Sergei Bobrovsky wins Game 4 or even Game 5, I think he's the MVP of the playoffs, and I think he wins the trophy. But because of the way he played in Game 4, 5, and 6, he had a 781 save percentage.
Yeah.
I mean,
but Bob didn't show up 4, 5, and 6, and McDavid didn't show up 6 and 7. So it's like,
right. So then what's the thing about this? I mean, is this? I mean, I guess the question should be: should the MVP of the playoffs go to a player on the winning team? I almost feel like that's a necessity at this point.
Yes.
If you want to parade it and make it like this big deal, like it really isn't.
Yeah, I think it should be. I think you should say you can't be the MVP unless you're on the winning team. So the trophy technically says the MVP of the playoffs. I think we should change the trophy, and it should be the MVP of the playoffs for the winning team. So technically, for how the trophy is described now, sure, McDavid definitely is one of the people who deserves it. The trophy shouldn't be that. It's weird optics. It kind of ruined the moment, I feel like, a little bit during the trophy presentation. How are you going to tell really Florida awkward. In Florida that the other team's player was better than all of your players when you just won the cup? That's weird. And yeah, I don't know. It was icky. I didn't like it.
Mm-hmm.
I got it, but I didn't like it.
Yeah, exactly. So like, I understood why they did it. He's the best player in the world. He scored 42 points. He is on a, point per game pace in NHL history. He's third. There's only that are better than him. Do you know who they are?
Gretzky.
Yep. And
Lemieux.
Ah, good guesses. Look at you. So he is third behind those two guys. So totally get it. Totally understand why he won it. Guesses. I don't know why Panthers fans were, when it was announced that McDavid won the Conn Smythe, I don't know why they were rooting for Bobrovsky, because it wouldn't have been Bobrovsky anyway. It would have been Barkov, in my opinion, who would have won the MVP. I don't know.
I don't know. Some Oilers fans are also trying to say, "Oh, how disrespectful of them to." What are you talking about? They just announced the opposing team won a trophy in your stadium right after you won the cup. Of course, you're gonna chant against them. That's dumb. That's a dumb take by Oilers fans. They're just butthurt.
Yeah, and that's fair. That's fair to a point. So, anyways, I just thought that was interesting because there were a lot of people who were giving McDavid crap, and I was just like, dude, I don't blame him at all. I wouldn't do it.
That's dumb, but him getting the trophy is also dumb. but that is how the trophy is named. Change the name of the trophy. Boom. Fixed. On Starcastic Remarks.
Change the name of the trophy or change the description of the trophy?
Change the description of the trophy. You knew what I meant.
Okay. I know. I'm just being a butthead. Sorry.
Bettman knew what I meant. Bettman knows.
Okay. So let's make this about the Stars now. All right. We'll segue into Star stuff here. Of course, who is the one player that scored in Game 7 for the Oilers? Freaking Matthias Janmark, of course.
I hate that guy.
On a breakaway too.
But you know what? When you look at a shot, that was a terrible shot. It just snuck through.
Who cares? He still scored the goal. Like,
yeah.
I shouldn't have been mad about it, but like even years later, as a Stars fan, I'm like, but he got so many breakaways as a member of the Dallas Stars, and he was never able to put the puck in the net. And I was like, of course he does it in Game 7 when it really matters.
But it's not like he stopped being Janmark. That was still a terrible shot on the breakaway. It just got through. I mean, he hit the guy in the chest, and it just rolled around him under the arm. So,
but again, who cares?
He finally got.
He did it. They don't ask about how you did it. They just ask if you did it, and he did it.
I'm just saying. I listen to Oilers fans. He's done that for forever for them as well. He's had so many breakaway chances for them and hasn't scored. So he's doing the same thing. He just did it so many times that he finally got one to go through. And lucky for him, it happened at the biggest time.
Like Matthias Janmark is Mr. Game 7 in the Stanley Cup final goal scorer. That's how you have to describe him now, because that's a fact. That's not a like trying to put him on a pedestal. That's like a solidified fact, and it pisses me off. That's not a thing that really matters, but it was just like a side thing about this. Okay, now honestly, what I really want to talk about all of this is what can we do, the Stars organization? What can Jim Nill? What can all of these guys within the organization? What can they do to learn from the Panthers and what they saw in the Stanley Cup final? Because what the Panthers were able to do is, dude, they bended like crazy. They bent. It was lost 3 games in a row after having a 3-0 lead. But at the end of the day, they still won the Stanley Cup. And then no one's going to remember that anymore, about the fact that they lost 3 games in a row in the Stanley Cup final. All they're going to remember is that push came to shove, and it was the final moment and you had to win it. It was here or now. They did it. So what I want to ask you is, what can the Stars organization learn from the Panthers, and what can they apply moving forward, especially for the next couple of years when the Stars have their window wide open as Stanley Cup favorites?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. When I look at the difference between the Dallas Stars and the Panthers, I don't see too much of one. I think both of those teams going against each other would have been the 2 best teams in hockey, and they would have been similar in style. They're both built for the playoffs for sure. And I think it was just execution. I mean, the Panthers had Bobrovsky go crazy for him. He had the best 2 months of his life, and they won. And that's what it takes. It takes a couple of guys having the best 2 months of their lives, and you win the Stanley Cup. So I think this offseason for the Stars is preserve what you have and build off the young guys that we're already getting that are for sure coming up. That's what the goal needs to be for the Stars here. If you can add something, like Jim Nill says, if there's opportunity to add something, he's always going to look, and you always should do it. But I don't think you need to stretch too far is what I'm thinking. This team was good enough to win, and they didn't execute when it counted. They got beat by Stuart Skinner. They just couldn't score. And that's what it came down to. It was poor execution. So I don't think there's too much that needs to change. I don't think you learned too much from the Panthers. I think what you learned from the Panthers.
Oh, I think we lost Chris there for a second. Okay. So anyways, I'll answer my own question here. Chris, are you back?
Yeah.
We lost you for a split second. The one thing that I learned from this past postseason run for the Stars is I think the Stars are missing something. Okay. I really think they are. And what I think is missing is just the physical element of nastiness. I think that's something that the Edmonton Oilers were able to pull out of themselves. They didn't have a lot of it, but when it push came to shove, that mattered, and they showed a lot more shove. And I think that's why they were able to tie the series, is because the Panthers bullied them in the first 3 games, and then for some reason, like halfway through game 3, kind of like it was for the Stars in game 4, something clicked for the Edmonton Oilers. And what I think it was is they were just tired of being pushed around a little bit, and they pushed back. The one thing that I did not like watching the Edmonton series was the pushback. And we have players who can do that. Now, one of them was hurt in Yanni Hakanpää. He's probably one of our more physical guys, but we didn't really see Jamie Benn do it very much. And I think he was trying to make sure he didn't take a stupid penalty. And then the one that really frustrated me the most looking back now was Mason Marchment. He is one of those guys that we need to step up in that element when it's needed. And when I was watching the end of the Edmonton series, the thing that I noticed was they just looked dead. They looked out of gas. And I don't think it was because of a lack of effort or a lack of wanting to win. What I think was missing was just that extra little bit of grit. I hate using that word, but that's what it is, that nastiness, that physicality that the Florida Panthers have. When you look at the players that they have Matthew Tkachuk. Now they have skill guys like Barkov. Barkov is by far a skill guy. Verhaeghe is like that too. But then they've got guys who have some skill and who are also nasty. You got Matthew Tkachuk, who you gushed about, who is one of your favorite players outside of the Stars organization. They've got Sam Bennett. They've got Sam Reinhart, who is going to get paid. My gosh. And he's got an element of nastiness to him. So I think that's something that I think we're going to have to replace Duchesne. In replacing Duchesne, either Mason Marchment needs to elevate his game a little bit, or at least keep it the same and bring out that nastiness more, or find somebody to that same element. I know that's a lot of explanation. I'm sorry, but that's just something that it was a revelation that I had about a week ago when I was going through all of this stuff and thinking about this.
Yeah, that can kind of make sense. I tend to think we have that on the team. We just didn't see it at the right times, like you mentioned. Like I think Ben and Marchment and Hakanpää can do that. It just didn't.
I think we have it, but we don't have enough. I think we need like 1 or 2 more guys who can do that, whether it's a defenseman or whether it's a forward. I would like to see a forward do that, because on the forecheck, I think that's really important in the playoffs. But that's just something that I think.
The only thing that I kind of balk at when you start having that kind of discussion is then you go get like a Ryan Reeves or a Matt Dumba. And that's not the direction I think you want to go to. And you said it right. I understood what you were saying. I just want to hammer home. It's a skill guy that can be physical. It's a power forward guy is really what you're looking for. You don't want a goon who's just going to skate around and cause problems. You want a guy that is an offensive talent that can score big goals.
Wilson, a Brad Marchand, something like that.
And the problem is those guys are expensive.
But I think that you can find those guys sort of like that at a discount. There are guys out there that I think could do that. Now, with that being said, we're kind of blurring the lines for our next couple of things here, but a couple of guys that have been talked about lately. One is Patrik Laine, and then the other is Patrick Kane. Both of those guys. Well, first off, Patrik Laine is looking for a fresh start from the Columbus organization. It's not really his fault. Not really. Yeah, not as bad as PLD though. Not as bad as PLD. And then Patrick Kane as well. So Laine would be fun. I think having Patrik Laine on the team would be fun because he does have an element of skill, but I don't think we need him. Now, I can't believe I'm saying this about this other guy, but I really think that Patrick Kane would be a very good fit here for the Dallas Stars. And I think it makes more sense now than it did last year. And the reason why I say that is we're not going to have Pavelski this year. I'm just assuming at this point. We still do have to replace the points that he provided. Same thing with Duchesne. I don't think Duchesne's returning either. As much as I hate to say it, I think Patrick Kane would be a very good fit on top of the fact that he's got some nastiness to him. He can put up points with some good players. He still has a good hockey IQ. There have been rumors for years now of him possibly coming to the Stars. It didn't make sense back then. It makes sense now. And then the biggest thing I think about him that a lot of people aren't talking about, and again, I hate to say this, but it is important. He's got Stanley Cup winning experience, not just Stanley Cup final experience, but winning experience. He's won 3 cups. He knows what it takes to get there. Right now, we've only got one guy, I think, and that's Tyler Seguin. He won it when he was 19. So that was over 10 years ago. For some reason, I think Craig Smith might have won it too. There's another guy somewhere in the bottom 6. I can't remember, but it makes sense. It really makes sense to me. And I hate to say that, but he seems like a very good fit at this point for the Stars for me.
It does make sense. He's still like a point per game guy. He's had some injury troubles recently that
he was really good. He was really good for Detroit. Sorry.
Yeah, his injury troubles seem like he's coming out of them, but when you got reoccurring injuries like that, there's kind of no telling if they're going to keep happening, But to your earlier point, that's a guy that's not going to bring you any of that kind of physicality that you're kind of looking for, I feel like. So I agree with the point side, a point per game guy. You're never going to put your nose up and say no to that. But yeah, I don't know if that brings you exactly what you're calling for, at least.
Not 100%, and obviously not the physicality side, but I think it does bring an element of nastiness. He can be nasty. He's shown in the past he's willing to get to the dirty areas. So
to me, that's more of a direct Pavelski replacement / improvement. So it would be interesting. It's really going to be interesting how much he's going to cost too. That would be the other bigger question. So
I think you could get him for $3 million.
3?
I really do. I believe that because he signed with Detroit for what? 2.5, something like that.
So that was like while he was that while he was still injured, or was that after he was done with his injury and
after he had rehabbed? After he had rehabbed from his injury and he signed the contract with Detroit. So
yeah, I don't know. It's a weird one for sure. And with his injury, it's still, I guess he's not injured still, but his injuries have been real funky the past 2 years too.
Now, this is the one thing, the one thing that I agree with and that I'm slightly worried about. Ardell, Kane is low character. I don't want him. And he is old. Yes, he's old, but that's kind of the point of him being a Pavelski replacement. I think you need somebody like that who can kind of talk to the younger guys about what it takes to get to the Stanley Cup final. Now, on the other side about the low character, absolutely. So that would be something.
Same with Laine.
Well, Laine is not, not really. He's not as, he's nowhere near.
He's been in the middle of some dressing room drama, to say the
right, but he's not had any off the ice stuff that has been issues like Patrick Kane has. Patrick Kane
not as bad as the Blackhawks. That's correct.
Yeah. So and then I don't know how I feel about that, but the one thing I do feel about with Patrick Kane, if he came in here, is that you've got a lot of guys in the Stars locker room who are of high character, and I think that could negate all of that stuff with Kane.
Yeah,
I don't think
it could go the other way, but I tend to agree that the Stars dressing room is known to be one of the dressing rooms that has higher character and is cohesive.
And it's a direct reflection of the GM. Jim Nill is huge on character. So, well, yeah, but that's true. But I don't know how I feel about that. Now, another guy that people are kind of talking about in the chat over here, Chris, is Steven Stamkos, which that would be interesting as well. Now, the reason why I wouldn't mention Stamkos with this is I still think it's likely that he resigns in Tampa Bay, and he's also going to cost a heck of a lot more than Patrick Kane is. I mean, Stamkos is not going to make as much, I don't think. But he's still going to be in the, 5.5 to 7, maybe even $7.5 million range.
Yeah,
So
he hasn't had the health problems, and he's over a point per game player still. So he's definitely going to be a lot more expensive. That's kind of your home run swing. I feel like for Stamkos.
exactly, and like 100%. If I had the choice between Steven Stamkos and Patrick Kane, who would I want? Steven Stamkos, hands down, no question. But you kind of have to take some of the pros with the cons, right? The pro is that Patrick Kane is going to be cheaper. He's got the Stanley Cup experience. So does Stamkos. He's got probably more recent. He does have more recent Stanley Cup success, but he's just going to cost way more money, and it's less likely that he has a chance to get in with the Stars because he's going to resign in Tampa Bay. But that's just what I believe.
Man, one more player that chat's throwing out is Mitch Marner.
Oh my goodness, no, I don't even want to talk about that. Okay, fine, we'll talk about it. I don't really have a opinion about this because it's not gonna happen. I mean, if you look at Mitch Marner and what it would take to trade to get the assets the Stars would have to give up, it's not worth it for me. I mean, I would expect like a first round pick, a top level prospect, and like a third, second, mid six forward, something like that for going towards Toronto. So, I mean, your first round pick, they're probably taking Maverick Bork or Logan Stankoven. And then they're also probably taking, I don't know, Craig Smith or something. I know that's not a middle six guy, but that's a lot to give up for Marner. And it's just,
I don't know if he'd cost quite that much, but
no, he's gonna cost
definitely the only way I think you realistically see the Stars going after Marner in that way is if for some reason you lose both Tanev and Duchesne, and keeping the band together is no longer an option, and you take a swing. Same for Stamkos. This is more of a Hail Mary, I think, than a home run swing, because there's a lot more to lose when you go for Stamkos when you go for Marner over Stamkos. So it's interesting, and the Stars definitely are connected to them via some NHL insiders, but I wouldn't put them high on the list there.
Okay, we got to move on because we got lots of other things here to talk about. But biggest things, I'm just going to kind of jump real quick to some of these, Chris. According to a couple of sources, Jim Nill is very interested in bringing in William Carrier of the Vegas Golden Knights to Dallas. And if he hits the free agent market, that could be a player that the Stars could target. What do you think?
I think that's kind of the player that you were talking about earlier that has the goal scoring ability and has the ability to be a little bit physical. I think he's a little bit on the lower end of the scoring than you'd like. But he has the ability. He'd be a solid bottom six. He'd be a really good bottom six guy. I'm not even going to say solid. He'd be a good bottom six guy.
I really like the idea of William Carrier coming to Dallas. That would be a really good fit for us. And he fits every single box that I talked about except for the goal scoring aspect. Yeah. But you could also rely on players like Maverick Bork and Logan Stankoven and maybe even Wyatt Johnston. Even more so. I know he had a 30-goal season, but could he score 40 or 50 goals next year? I don't know.
It would be interesting to see if Carrier would respond well to being on a line like that, though, where it's not, this isn't the bruiser line. you're the bruiser on a goal scoring line. And that's kind of feel like where he would be forced to slot in. And that would be an interesting place for him to be. It'd be interesting to see how he'd play in that role. So I don't think it's a slam dunk, but I think he's a very good bottom six guy for sure.
Speaking of bottom six guys, someone we need to talk about, Chris, Ty Dellandrea is no longer a member of the Dallas Stars. He is traded to the San Jose Sharks for a 4th round pick. Honestly, Chris, the way I look at this is this is typically what Jim Nill does, is if he sees a player that he doesn't see fitting into the lineup, he tries to do right by the player. That's just kind of what I view this as. You know, Ty Dellandrea, as much as I love him, and he was very good this year in a bottom six role, and he was even big for us last playoffs. He scored 2 super critical goals in the playoffs last year. He's going to get his chance to play in San Jose quite a bit. And I just think, and it's not his fault. It's not that he played bad. It's just that I think there are others that outplayed him in the lineup. And when you look at Craig Smith, when you look at Sam Steele, when you look at maybe possibly adding a guy like William Carrier, there's just not any room for Ty Dellandrea in the future plans of the Dallas Stars. And I think Jim Nill came to the conclusion of that.
Yeah, it's the same thing as with Kiviranta and Janmark. Like if we were the classic Dallas Stars just dancing on the bubble for 10 years straight, we'd probably re-sign that guy immediately, and it's not even an issue. But with the depth of this team right now and the way it's built, like you said, there's no room for Dellandrea here. There's definitely room for him in the NHL, and he's going to find a spot. And like you said, he's going to play a lot more on some other teams, but no room on the Stars. Good for him though. He's gonna get to play a lot.
I feel really bad about it. I really do, but I think with Dellandrea, what you see is what you're gonna get, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. You need guys like that. You absolutely.
Yeah. Andrew Cogliano was that guy. I mean,
right.
He did it for 1,200 games.
Right. And speaking of Andrew Cogliano, he has decided to hang up his skates. He has retired after 17 seasons in the NHL. Some of those with Dallas, but most of it being a member of the Anaheim Ducks. So good on him. Really hope that he enjoys what he's going to get to do now. He has joined a role. I'm not quite sure exactly what he's doing in the Colorado front office. Player development. Okay, that doesn't surprise me. So he's kind of gone the.
I think it was
Rich
player
Peverly,
development / scouting.
Yeah. He might just be trying to find something that he likes. He might just be doing whatever.
I'm sure it's here's a job, figure out what you want to do.
Right. Yeah. Just like what is it? Senior advisor to the GM or something like that.
Yeah.
Basically, it's just a puppy dog to follow the GM around and learn stuff and figure out what he wants to do. It's kind of what Jason Spezza did for a while in Toronto there. 2 more things. One not so big, one very big, and we need to spend some time on it. Dallas re-signs 3 players. Nothing of huge consequence here, but they re-sign Oscar Back, Matej Blumel, and Pedersen as well. So just kind of filling out the depths, filling out the AHL roster a little bit. Maybe some possible call-ups for Back and Blumel. They've been very good the last couple of years, and Blumel spent some time on the line with both Stankoven and Maverick Bourque, so there might be some chemistry there that might translate to the NHL level. I don't know. But the big thing we need to talk about, Chris, is Chris Tanev. So for me and for a lot of Stars fans, this is 100% the number one priority to get done before next Monday. And there have been some conflicting reports going on about, what they're thinking, what is going to happen, and stuff like that. So the one thing I saw is Darren Dreger, who is an insider. He went on TSN radio in Canada and talked about Chris Tanev and the fact that both the player and the organization, him and the Stars, realized that he was like a perfect fit for this team. And it just seemed to click really well. and it was good for both sides. Is kind of what I put it. And then earlier today, it came out that it's not necessarily like a for sure thing. I got my hopes up with the Dellandrea report, but he may be going to free agency, Chris. If we lose Chris Tanev, how do you feel about the Stars' ability next year to defend? Because I am very not feeling super confident about the Stars' ability to defend next year if Chris Tanev is not a member of that decor.
Yeah, so when you look at it from Tanev's perspective, it's like, how do you not just go to free agency and see what other people are offering? So it's kind of hard to convince him to sign here before you have an opportunity to see anybody else's offer. That's kind of tough to do, in my opinion. And yeah, he fit really well in Dallas, but he was here for 3 months. So it's like, I love that 3 months, but that's a pretty small sample size. So it makes sense for him on a personal level to check out other options at least. And I think that's most likely to happen. I don't think he signs with the Stars before July 1st. I think the Stars defense is definitely worse if Tanev is gone, and it's going to be looking for a replacement. Like, as soon as Tanev is no longer an option, your number one goal is to find someone else who can not replace him, but at least fill the number 2 right defenseman spot.
Patch the hole.
Patch the hole. Yeah. But it's not going to be, fire and brimstone. We're going to be back where we were at the start of the season. We're not going to have the question mark of, can Lundqvist do it? We know he can't. But it's going to be the same defense that we were leading the Central Division with. So it's going to be something you can definitely overcome, but it's going to be the hole still. Like we talked about all season last season, there's a hole in this lineup. It's on the right defense. We got to patch it. It was patched. We're going to be talking the same way if we don't re-sign Tanev this offseason or someone who's capable of doing that role.
Could this be a situation like we saw a couple years ago with Anton Khudobin? And Anton Khudobin waits till after July 1st, and his agent goes to other teams and says, "Hey, what'd you give us?" And then ultimately he came back and signed with the Stars. Is that something that we could see with Chris Tanev?
Yeah, it totally could. And if I was Chris Tanev, I would say absolutely. I'm going to wait and just see what other offers there are, especially if you're going to leave your offer on the table, So I think that's kind of a no-brainer for him. But I wouldn't say that it's unlikely the Stars sign him. I would say it's pretty much 50-50. I think he's going to take whatever deal he gets best. So it's just going to be up in the air, and we're going to have to outbid the other teams.
I really feel like you can't lose this guy, Chris. I haven't felt like this way about a player in a very long time. He just fits the bill way too well. I really feel like he does. And this is someone I feel like you got to shell out a little bit of extra money that you don't want to do. Because that, but like Ardell is saying in the comments down here, there's more demand than supply. He is 34. He's a veteran. He's right-handed. We saw evidence of him being able to play with basically anybody on the Stars decor and play really well. We saw how he played against Mark Stone and how he did against Nathan McKinnon and even Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl to a certain extent as well. So I really feel like you got to shell out the money to him and be willing to give it to him. Whether it's an extra year and he takes a lower cap hit because you give him the extra year, or if you're only going to give him 2 years, maybe you give him a little bit more than you really want to give him. And I think this is one of the few instances where I feel like Jim Nill should break his own rule and go out there and keep the guy.
Yeah, I'm happy overpaying if it's a good term. If it's over 3 years, I'm not happy paying.
See, and this doesn't feel the same as like Ryan Suter, for example. When Ryan Suter came, they were trying to find someone to play with Miro Heiskanen. Now we don't have to worry about that. I think either Tanev or Harley could play with Miro. If you put him with Tanev, then Miro plays on his strong side. And if you put the two of our top 2 guys together, they showed that they could be fantastic. I really feel like, and I even think even if we keep Tanev, I still think we need one more guy. And I don't think any person we have currently is good enough to fulfill that role. And believe it or not, I'm going to say this too. I think we're going to need another right-handed defenseman. And I don't know, someone like a Radko Gudas. And we'd
We don't
probably
have the
have
money for that. I'll tell you right now.
And so here's what I would do. And Uri, I got to give credit to Uri Kralik here for this, but I think you give him some kind of pick, hopefully just a second rounder, not a first rounder. You give him Nils Lundqvist, and you give him Radek Faksa to make the money work. I think
Radek Faksa.
I think they would. I think they would, especially if they get that first round pick and they also get Nils Lundqvist, who. Yes, he's a little bit more of a project than a prospect, but still, I think that's something. Deal. Oh, well, yeah, that's true. I forgot he's an RFA, but either way, it's not going to cost a ton of money to re-sign him. So I don't know. That's just thoughts for me here on Chris Tanev. Yeah, you can't lose him. You can't lose him. I'm sorry.
I mean, short-term Chris Tanev is a big deal, but your longer-term franchise thing is who's going to play with Miro Heiskanen to allow him to play on the left side. And even if you get someone like a Radko Gudas, like I like Chris Tanev, I don't know if he's the guy to play with Miro Heiskanen on the right side that will unlock his offensive potential. I don't know if that is who does it. So.
But my thing is do we really need that offensive potential at this point from Miro Heiskanen? Yes, we've seen that he can do that, but we don't really I mean, it showed kind of this year we didn't really need it in the regular season. So I don't know the answer to that, to be honest with you, but that's another question for another day. But anything else, Chris, before we get into who cares?
Nope.
No? Okay. Before we get into who cares, this was not my idea. So Chris is going to enlighten us with his choice for what the who cares segment is going to be for today. So Chris, take it away.
All right. So we're doing top 3 carrying devices that you can use to transport other items. That is the topic.
The reason why I really hate this topic right now is because I just did a move from a 2,100 square foot house to where we are in Dallas. So
Ryan knows all the devices. So go ahead, Ryan. Your number 3 device, please.
I don't even know why he chose device, because it's just container.
Because there's many types: bags, containers,
it's
boxes.
Things that hold other things. Is that what we're going with?
Things that hold other things. I like that better.
Straight thing.
I like that better. Things that hold other things.
Things that hold other things. Okay. My number 3 is a plastic baggie, because I used a lot of them when I was taking apart all of these pieces of furniture and stuff like that.
We're talking about a sandwich bag?
Yes, like a sandwich bag.
Like for a ham sandwich?
Yes, something like that. And it keeps all the screws together and all of that stuff, so that I don't lose them, so that when I pull them back out from the truck, I'm able to put them together and I don't have to worry about, freaking out about losing those things. So,
I like that pick, but not for the reason you chose. I mean, when the bread people and the baggy people colluded to make sure that they match sizes, that was great for humanity. I mean, that was a time of rejoicing and joy. If only the hot dog bun and the hot dog people could do that, then we would have utopia. So
we have those things.
Yeah, there's some mixing.
Literally just went. No, hold on. I literally just went to QT today, and and those little like bun warmer things, the steamer things or whatever, they have very specific containers that hold those hot dog buns, and they're like perfect.
Yes, but sometimes your number of hot dog buns and your number of hot dogs in a little package don't match up. We have not reached an industry standard for number of buns and bags. The industries have not colluded. It should be 8. I agree. I agree.
No,
We should make 8
no,
the industry standard for hot
no.
dogs and hot dog
That
buns.
what are you talking about? It is the industry standard.
Moving on. Number 3 device for me is also something that was used recently. I'm going with the duffel bag. This is the high quality airplane carry-on bag. All you people with your rigid box bags, incorrect. Wrong. And let me tell you why. So your little duffel bag, when you get those souvenirs, when you're out and about getting your little souvenirs, you gotta find a place to put them. Well, you already packed your little rigid carry-on bag stuffed full on your way there with your 24 pairs of underpants because you're gonna crap yourself 3 times a day, you think in your head. So you got no room for your souvenirs. Well, guess what? Your duffel bag, flexible, movable, can move about. When you think you packed this duffel bag full, wrong. You got twice as much space in there. That's how duffel bags work. So duffel bag, ultimate airplane carry-on bag. Number 3. Ryan, number 2.
My number 2, and it's because it hacked me off how badly cardboard boxes like don't work. It's just a regular, I don't even know what to call it. It just like one of those regular plastic tote containers, I guess is what you could call it.
Tote, yeah.
Tote container, okay.
Tote box.
It is. You can fit so much more in one of those things.
Am I gone or is Ryan gone?
Am I gone?
Well,
are we both gone?
I'm gonna guess Ryan's gone. So were you gone or was I gone, Ryan?
I thought I was gone. I don't know. Anyways, what I was saying, I'm not done with my explanation. Hold on.
Oh, sorry, my bad.
Yeah. My number 2 was that tote box I was talking about. You can fit so much more stuff in it. It doesn't collapse when you stack them like stupid cardboard boxes do. I learned that from experience, unfortunately. And I mean, even if it's like ridiculously heavy, it's one of those things that you can like pick up, put on your shoulder, and still be able to move it around with relative ease. With a cardboard box, you can't really do that because if it's really heavy and you have those stupid handles on the side or whatever, as soon as you try to pick that up, it just rips
or falls apart.
I can't tell you how many times that happened over the last couple of days. Anyways, I'm done. That's my number 2.
Cardboard is garbage. Another solid choice, Ryan. Man, I'm proud of you. My number 2, we're going specific on this one. We are going in a completely different direction as well. We're going with glass Tupperware. So for leftovers, okay, your leftovers, you never want them because they're in the weird little plasticky thing that you've thrown up in 4 times probably. You got bad memories with that Tupperware. It's all cloudy. It's all scratched up. You're not happy about it. And you're trying to eat this mushy leftover enchilada casserole out of this thing you've thrown up in that has knife scratches all over it, and it's covered in clouded clear plastic and a blue lid. Doesn't make anyone happy. The glass Tupperware, man, you take those leftovers out and you're like, who ordered catering? This is some fancy stuff. Glass Tupperware just makes you feel better. It makes the food taste better. Overall, fantastic. Great job, glass Tupperware. You're doing it right. Ryan, number 1.
Yeah, that's hilarious that you say that because it just made me think about this. We were talking about this yesterday or today, this morning before I left Farmersville, and like the fact that like soda tastes different depending on what container it's in. It could be the exact same thing. So like if you have like a tin can or a glass bottle or like a styrofoam cup with like a fountain drink in it, they can all taste different. And like the fact that, I think mom was saying something about like dad only likes a specific kind of soda in a tin can. Oh, no, it was fruit punch. It was like the Hawaiian
punch from an aluminum can.
Yes, that's the only way that he can drink it is from an aluminum can, but it can't be from a plastic bottle or even like a 2 liter. I thought that was weird.
Aluminum can fruit punch is fantastic.
I'm not disagreeing with
freezing cold.
Yes, that's true. And then like glass bottle Coke and glass bottle Dr. Pepper. Oh my goodness, it's amazing.
High quality.
Way better than tin cans. Anyways, okay. My number 1, I've actually got it over here, so I gotta grab it. Hold on.
Oh wait, is that copyright? I don't know.
Not copyrighted. That's a laptop.
Laptop
backpack. Laptop backpack. try and say that 5 times fast. I take this thing everywhere with me. I don't just use it for a laptop bag. This thing is so big, like it can hold all of my podcast stuff that I need, and it also can carry like 4 to 5 changes of clothes and a pair of extra shoes.
Like, but can it carry your 12 pairs of underwear for your 2-day trip?
Why would I need 12 pairs of underwear?
Just in case, man. You never know.
You only need 2 for 5 days. You can just do regular and then inside out and then backwards. There you go. Got your answer. So, anyways, it can fit everything. It's enormous. I love it. That's my number 1, the laptop backpack.
And sadly, this is boring, but my number 1 is the exact same thing. And Ryan, I think we have the exact same
bag. Are you
bag.
serious?
Yeah, I think we have the exact same bag. Yeah, that bag's great. It's got a little chargy thing, so I got a little portable charger, and you can plug it in on the outside of your bag. Great for airports. Love that. It really is big. It's got 2 big pockets instead of 1 big pocket and 2 small ones. It's got 2 big ones and 1 small one, which is great. Love that.
And then it's got the little slide pocket thing, and also the small little front pocket too.
It's got the lower back lumbar pocket, which is fantastic for passports when you are traveling in scary European countries. So yeah, boring number 1 for me, but I agree. Backpacks are high quality. And what I was going to mention is I was under the impression when I was a smaller child than I am now, and now I'm a man child, but I was a smaller child. I thought, oh, well, people they got backpacks when they're in school. It's a little kid thing. Little kids use backpacks, and big old boys use briefcases. No one uses briefcases. Everyone wears backpacks still. What is this?
Yeah, I don't think I've ever used a briefcase or a case of any kind. Like,
I had to get something like that when I went to this career fair thing, because A&M's still trying to be all fancy and stuff. So haven't used it.
Look at that. We're back to full circle. Do we need to talk about the Aggies now, Chris?
No. If you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. So
I do.
You know what? I will say something. Texas is getting a person that matches their character. That's what I'll say. Good for you, Texas.
Nice. Chris with the slap across the face. That's excellent, Chris. That's a great way to end it. Okay. Anything else, Chris?
Giga Maggies, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. It's going to be a busy week for us. Okay, so obviously we have the episode coming out now. Tomorrow is going to be ridiculous for me. I'm recording with Joey of Locked On Stars tomorrow at 7. I'm doing another recording with Uriah at 8 o'clock. So you're going to hear from Uriah Kralik. First time in a while since we've heard from him. And then even tomorrow night, I'm recording another episode that will be released on Friday with David Castillo of D Magazine. And we're going to, with Uriah and also with David, we're going to talk the NHL draft and possible players that the Stars should be looking at. So very excited. Lots of things coming up. We're kind of going to go into content overload for a little bit this week, just because there's so much crap going on. And then on Monday, I'm considering it. It just depends on what's going on with our family vacation. That's going to be Free Agent Frenzy. So we may be doing a live stream for maybe like an hour or two. Not for the whole time, because that would be insane. But we might come on for like an hour or two and kind of discuss the different
probably
things.
Also depend how many free agents actually are getting signed too. Because if it's a boring free agent frenzy, we're not popping up.
Right, exactly. So, but we'll, we're at least hoping the Stars will get somebody in free agent frenzy, and hopefully that's Chris Tanev, but hopefully that's done beforehand. But anyways, a very busy week for us coming up.
And there's a potential for this to be a crazy offseason for the NHL. It could be insanity. So it could be a lot of fun. The season's over. I'm over it now because now I have something else to be sad about. Great. Love my life. But this offseason is going to be a ton of fun.
The Rangers won the World Series, Chris.
Rangers won the World Series. Thank you. Center myself.
All right, guys. Thank y'all so much for following along with us here this evening. Thank you to BetterHelp, Manscaped, and DraftKings for being our sponsors. Promo code is THPN. Go and use that. Thank you for following along with us as always. For those of you that are listening afterwards, there's even more of you that are doing that. Please use anywhere you listen to your podcast and leave us a 5-star review. If you're listening on YouTube, click like, subscribe, leave us a comment anywhere. And if you really liked anything you heard, seriously, leave that 5-star review. We'd really appreciate it. Thank you guys so much, as always. Along with Chris, my name is Ryan. We will catch you guys on the flip side. Hope you guys have a good, fantastic morning, afternoon, evening, whenever you guys are listening. And tomorrow, we will be back with a lot more content here coming up in the next week. Thank you guys so much.